Who designed this engine? The question sliced through the factory floor like a blade. The hum of machines softened, conversations died mid-sentence, and even the clatter of tools seemed to pause in midair. The CEO's heels echoed sharply against the concrete as she stood before the massive prototype engine, her sharp eyes scanning the team. She expected a senior engineer to step forward. She expected credentials, experience, perhaps a confident speech about innovation. What she did not expect was a little girl in a faded blue dress quietly raising her hand. Before we step into what happened next, take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to the channel if you believe kindness can change a life. The factory was alive with the scent of oil and steel, beams of white sunlight pouring through tall windows and illuminating the enormous engine mounted at the center of the floor. It was the Helion X prototype, a revolutionary design rumored to redefine the company's future. Months of secrecy surrounded it. Executives whispered about it in boardrooms. Investors waited impatiently. Today was the day the CEO would see it in person. Across the floor, crouched beside the engine with a wrench still in his grease-stained hand, was Daniel Hayes. To most of the staff, Daniel was just the quiet mechanic from maintenance. He kept his head down, worked overtime without complaint, and left before anyone noticed him. Few knew that he once studied mechanical engineering before life took a sharp turn. Fewer knew that he had been raising his daughter alone since she was 2 years old. Emma stood beside him, her small fingers wrapped around the edge of his worn jacket. She loved coming to the factory on Saturdays when it was quieter. She would sit on a wooden crate with crayons and paper while her father worked, occasionally asking questions about pistons and torque like they were fairy tale creatures. To her, her dad was not a mechanic. He was a magician who could make metal breathe. The CEO, Victoria Laurent, was known for her precision and high expectations. She built the company from near bankruptcy into an industry leader. She respected results and nothing else. As she examined the engine's sleek structure and innovative cooling system, she felt a flicker of admiration. This was not ordinary. This was brilliance. So, she asked firmly, who designed this engine? The lead engineers shifted uncomfortably. They knew it wasn't them. It had appeared gradually over late nights and weekends, its improvements impossible to ignore. Then, before anyone could speak, Emma stepped forward. Her braid bounced lightly against her shoulder as she pointed straight at her father. Victoria's breath caught. The room fell silent. Daniel froze, wrench slipping slightly in his hand. His heart pounded so loudly he was sure everyone could hear it. Months earlier, Daniel had stayed late after his shifts, studying the flaws in the old engine models. He saw inefficiencies others overlooked. He sketched ideas on scrap paper while Emma colored beside him. At night, after putting her to bed in their small apartment, he would refine calculations on his aging laptop. He never planned to take credit. He only wanted to prove to himself that he still had it, that he was more than a man who tightened bolts. Being a single father had reshaped his world. When his wife left, chasing dreams in another city, Daniel was left with heartbreak and a toddler who asked why mommy wasn't coming home. He chose stability over ambition. He took the mechanic job because it paid steadily and allowed flexible hours. Promotions passed him by because he couldn't stay late for corporate meetings. He endured quiet judgment from those who assumed he lacked drive. But every sacrifice he made was for Emma. Victoria stared at Daniel, assessing the oil-streaked coveralls, the calloused hands, the nervous stance. Is that true? Her eyes seemed to ask without words. Daniel swallowed hard. He nodded slowly. One of the senior engineers began to protest, mentioning protocols and credentials. Victoria silenced him with a glance. She stepped closer to the engine, running her fingers along a modified fuel injection system. She asked technical questions, complex ones. Compression ratios. Thermal efficiency. Material stress limits. Daniel answered each one calmly now, his voice steady as he explained the innovations. As he spoke, something changed in the room. The quiet mechanic transformed into an engineer who never stopped being one. Emma watched with shining eyes. She didn't understand all the numbers, but she understood pride. Victoria felt something she hadn't expected, shame. For years, she had preached about talent and opportunity, yet here stood a man whose potential had been buried under assumptions. She thought about her own father, a factory worker who never had the chance to rise because no one looked past his uniform. The tension in the room slowly shifted into awe. The engine wasn't just functional, it was extraordinary. It promised higher efficiency, lower emissions, and unprecedented durability. Investors would celebrate. The company's future could pivot on this design. Victoria finally spoke, her voice softer now. She announced that the company would conduct immediate tests under Daniel's leadership. Gasps spread through the crowd. A mechanic leading a research division? It was unheard of. But Victoria wasn't finished. She acknowledged publicly that talent doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it wears coveralls and carries a child on one hip. She ordered HR to review internal development programs and create pathways for workers to present ideas, regardless of position. Over the next weeks, the Helion X passed every test. Media outlets buzzed with headlines about innovation. Investors returned with renewed confidence. Yet the most powerful moment wasn't in the boardroom or the press conference. It was when Daniel brought Emma to the final presentation. She wore the same simple blue dress, now carefully pressed. When Victoria introduced Daniel as the lead designer, applause thundered through the hall. Daniel felt tears sting his eyes. Not because of the recognition, but because he caught Emma's reflection in the polished stage floor, standing tall, clapping for her father. Life didn't transform overnight into perfection. Daniel still woke up early to pack lunches. He still read bedtime stories after long days of testing. But something fundamental shifted. He no longer felt invisible. Victoria, too, changed. She began walking the factory floor more often, asking questions, listening. She funded scholarships for employees who wanted to continue their education. The culture of the company slowly evolved from hierarchy to humanity. And Emma? She grew up believing that her father could design engines that moved the world. More importantly, she learned that belief in someone can unlock their courage. Before this story comes to an end, I want to ask you something heartfelt. If this touched you in any way, if it reminded you of someone who deserves recognition, please like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to support stories that celebrate second chances. And here is a special request. Comment the word "believe" if you think hidden talent deserves to be seen. Years later, whenever people asked Victoria about the turning point in the company's history, she didn't mention profits or patents. She remembered a quiet factory floor, a brave little girl, and a single father holding a wrench like it was both a tool and a lifeline. Because sometimes, the most powerful innovations aren't just engines of steel and fire. They are engines of hope, built quietly, fueled by sacrifice, and revealed by the smallest voice in the room pointing toward greatness.